Well, I don't know a lot about the Indian hat or purse is what I was told in the beginning, except that Aunt Luella and I'd heard Grandpa talk about it. And once we had the Thayer County Museum in Belvedere, Aunt Luella said, that hat needs to be in a museum somewhere, and she was all ready to give it to me. And when we were there one time, and she took me down in her basement, and little Mike Hitchcock was about 12 or so, and he followed us down there, and she got the hat out and showed it to me. And I still thought it was a purse, because it was just in there like that, you know. We didn't take it out. And she was going to put it in the Thayer County Museum. And then Mike, he really didn't want her to do that yet. And so she didn't give it to me that day. And anyway, I've always thought about that little Indian hat now it is. Now a hat, obviously. But we think, you know, Grandpa's older brother was a frontier soldier. And so we thought he probably brought it to his younger brother back in Vermont when he came home. That was what
you want to just read this. This is what is with me.
Yeah. And it says, John Corliss, son of Martin Corliss, an older brother of Albert N., left his home in Vermont and came west to fight Indians. He traded for this cap from the Indians and took it home to his father in Vermont. Over 100 years old. We keep it stored in the vault. And then this was written by Aunt Luella, I guess. Or
that was written by my mom.
that was by Rose. Indian cap Uncle John Corliss got from the Indians during the Indian Wars. And John was an uncle of Luella Corliss Hitchcock.
And that's all I know about it.
And John is buried in Ash Grove, Missouri. And
I bet Jody can find out what tribe or something.
wasn't the Albert Corliss that Mom and
Probst.
Yeah, Bill Probst was like a great-grandson of John, and I got acquainted with him. He lived in Springfield, Missouri, and it was amazing the resemblance of Bill Probst to our grandpa. So to tell you another part of the story,
I missed that story.
once Tammy and Gary decided to give up the appraiser shop, she said they were cleaning out the safe. And I said, oh, well, whatever happened to the hat? So for about 6 months to a year, we said, where's the hat, where's the hat? Where's the hat? I found Tammy. She says, I know where the hat is. It's in my garage. I said, oh, we got to have pictures of it for the book. So she sent me some pictures. And this is the hat. So once I had pictures, then I took the pictures and sent it to a Mr. Shackelford who does Indian artifact on the Antiques Roadshow. He actually is based in San Antonio, Texas, so I sent him the pictures to say, can you give us some history on it? We're not, it's part of the family, and it's not going anywhere. We just wanted to know if he could tell us Indian tribes. And he wrote me back an interpretation that basically said that it was probably part of the Seneca. When we talk about the Indian Wars, when you lived in Vermont in 1800 was in northern New York, not in the Dakotas. So you have to think of Indian Wars regional. So then if you put the timeline together with the hat and the Indian Wars, you're really probably talking about western northern New York, because the tribes warred there. They traveled back and forth across the border, and they warred each other, and of course there was constant other people trying to buy their braves to be able to fight against one in the American Revolution against the Brits hired them to fight against the Americans, and then when it came to the Civil War, then the Confederates wanted to hire them to come fight against again the North. So We have a cousin named Ralph Roy who does a interpretation of the first battle in Vermont, the first Civil War battle in Vermont, and they're doing a commemoration of that this year in Vermont. I think it's X number of years, I don't know, but he is going to be one of the featured speakers. And he always tells the story about this first Civil War battle in Vermont when they came down through Canada. So everybody has a little history to share. So I wanted to be sure and share the hat story because I'd never heard the hat story.
Where is this coming from? Because John didn't buy it in New York. During that time, he bought it in the West. He got it from Indians who bought it in the West.
It's not from Indians who bought it in the West. It's from Indians who lived in New York. Western New York.
But that little paper says he got it from Indians who had trade with other Indians.
Well, that's true, but there were Indians in New York
He
too.
wants to find it, so we don't know how far west.
He may have just
Yes.
gone west to western New York.
Yes, exactly. And so you kind of have to, again, you have to do the research, the timeline. So maybe as we go forward and we have newer generations who know other people who know other people, that makes a difference. So I think that it makes, the timeline becomes very interesting when you go back and reach his detachment. His detachment was sent first to fight the wars in New York, and then he was eventually detached to the Dakotas. So it was quite a history. So we've tried to include some of the heirlooms in the book, and this is one of those heirlooms. So if you have something stuck in the drawer or in the closet that you want to share, we want to hear about it, or we'd like to have a picture. And no story is too small, or no item is too small.
And if anybody likes to come look at it before I put it back,
Yes.
welcome.
It lives at Tammy's house. And you know where she lives.
And when Tammy starts a museum, it'll end up in a museum.
Exactly.
Now, out here on the river where I live, down on McCarthy place, they got what they call an Indian cave, and the kids and people used to sort beads out of the dirt, you know, in these Indian caves. Now, some of the people out in our area have got some of them beads similar to that, you know, that the Indians traded for, you know, from the white man, you know, and they used them.
So we don't know how far west he came.
No, yeah. I guess the other family story is the one which might be shared with other family and friends here in the Burlington area, other old homes, was that what Tammy had also in her possession was the medical bag that great-grandmother Revere Yale used as part of her midwife. And that's probably my Aunt Myrna story. Aunt Myrna said one day, she said, I have these two books. One's an old Bible and one's Grandma Bevere's old medical book. And she said, a midwife book, but it was an old medical book. And it was, she said, do you want it? She said, I've offered it to 2 or 3 other grandkids and nobody has interest. You're in health care. Would you be interested? I said, absolutely. So she brought me these books that were in tattered pieces. So I did the research. The book is basically, I went to the medical library when I was working at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. They actually had 50 of them in their library. So it was a very standard medical book. And it wasn't worth value. It was going to cost me $900 to have it re-sewn, and I opted not to do that. But I have it bound together. So I had said to Tammy, could I borrow the bag to marry the bag with the book so we could do a picture for the album? And she graciously has passed she's passed the bag on to me. She moved it out of her garage to my house. So we have pictures of that to go in the story also. But I did do the research on the Kit Carson County book, and I counted 10 families that referenced that that Mrs. Sarah Yale had assisted in the birth of children in and around the Kit Carson County area. So who knows how many others? Who knows how many others? So Anyway, I wanted to share those stories, and if anybody has anything else to add, be glad to hear them. Thank you.